Okay, so good morning everyone, and thank you for attending Technia's webinar about Traceable Requirements Management in the Dassault Systèmes 3DEXPERIENCE platform. My name is Jan Törnqvist. I'm the Chief Technology Officer at Technia, and I will be your friendly host for this webinar and try to give you an overview of the capabilities we can provide in the requirements management domain with the Dassault Systèmes solutions. The agenda for the day, we are pretty much done with the introduction and can go straight into the topic. We'll start by looking at the some of the business issues really driving the need for a good requirements management tool, and also look at an overview of the capabilities in the Dassault Systèmes Traceable Requirements Management solution. Then we'll go into a bit more on the practices of the systems engineering domain that in one way defines the requirements management area. And then we'll jump straight into a demonstration of the functionality in the Enovia tool. This will of course not be that in-depth of demos. It will be scratching the surface in many ways, but we are of course more than happy to set something up for you specifically and listen and understand and try to understand your specific needs there later on. So please contact your Technia sales contact or Jana Alberg, who sent you the webinar invitations and reminders if you would like to request a more one-on-one demonstration later on. I'll try to wrap up in time for a question and answer session. You will all be muted during the webinar now, but please type your questions in the user interface and I'll read them loud and try to answer as good as I can afterwards. All right, so let's start by looking at the some of the business drivers behind this. In my demonstration material, by the way, I'm using a micro UAV, unmanned aerial vehicle, excellent toy for children and adults. It's so fun to fly around with these things that I just had to use that as my demo material as well. Looking at some of the business issues that really drives the need for a good requirements management tool is, of course, a globalization of the product development, meaning that you have teams and stakeholders of requirements spread out around the world in a lot of companies today. So this drives the need for good collaboration tools and a single source of the truth when it comes to the requirements on current or future products. The complexity is increasing. It's a concurrent environment with lots of activities happening in parallel, also causing the information related to requirements to be more complex, and the need for a tool to detangle that web of information is strong. The way also that customers now can interact and review products and spread reputations, create reputations with that really is not in the product development company's control anymore by using the web. That drives the need also for higher quality products, which means that requirements defining the product quality has to be more clearly defined so that you set up the important critical to quality parameters and follow them throughout the product development process. So acceleration of or increasing the pressure, of course, to deliver the products faster to market, not by exponentially adding more people to the staff, but instead try to get the products to market by reusing modules of predefined functionality, also, of course, satisfying a set of pre-existing requirements. So the way you deliver your products is that you as building Lego, you take already existing blocks and you put them together in new and innovative ways. The pace is increasing. Everyone is feeling that, and the technology lifespan is decreasing. New groundbreaking technology is introduced, and the expectancy from the consumers is to have that technology in their hands in very little time. So that also strongly demands a well-defined requirements management process, and especially around reusable chunks of requirements that you don't have to create or allocate for every new single product feature, but instead can reuse between products. It's a multidiscipline world for many product development companies today. So you have traditional mechanical engineering constantly meeting software and electronics teams in mutual feature creation. So everyone needs an understanding of the global objectives for the product. And a good way to describe that is, of course, to formulate requirements on a high level that really sets the main objectives for the product. That then can be broken down into requirements that make sense for the individual disciplines. Configuration management, that is it's something you get from a well-defined tool, but also you need to adhere to a strict process to make sure that you get the necessary gates and checks and impact analysis activities in order for major changes to occur in your requirement set. We look at some of the configuration management and change management capabilities of the tool later on, but this is, of course, to keep track of the right versions, the right revisions, but also making sure that changes are made according to a strict enough process. For some, speed is of essence, and the formality of the process will be less, of course, than for companies in heavily regulated areas that really needs to have all the right approvals in place for changes to occur. Another big thing, and the classic thing with requirements management tools, is that they have been living in their own separate islands. So the requirements have been defined and managed, but not linked at all to the rest of the product definitions. So that is something a bit unique with the solutions we will look at today, that you will get this consolidated traceability from the requirements definition out to the real design engineering activities in the authoring tools, in the CAD tools and the BOM management tools. So you will have this unique web of information giving you an unprecedented overview really of the impact the requirement change will have on your physical design later on. The business benefits that the 3DEXPERIENCE solution will bring here. I mentioned this, the unified product definition that you will get through the common platform that really binds these disciplines together, you get this total view of the full information web and all the dependencies and interrelated links between the requirements, the product definitions, and down to the parts and the potentially delivered serial number units that you have out on the market. The possibility to integrate the product design, the actual design activities performed in the authoring tools with the product definition in terms of requirements and features that the market will get from a product will ensure that you will get the right market delivery. Of course, you can have a perfect requirements management process and still define the wrong market requirements and then also define the wrong product. And a requirements management process is not the way to attack that, but more, of course, the proper interaction with the end consumers. The change management process is fully integrated. As I said before, you will manage the impulse for a change, the issues created by co-workers or customers that will somehow spin off a change request or an engineering change, taking a set of requirements or product features into a new state or perhaps removing certain requirements. We'll come back to that in the demonstration. The rationale behind requirements management can, of course, also for many industries be that it's a law stating that they need to comply with certain regulations for the products. And in that case, it might be a do or die to have a working requirements management tool. So compliance is a strong driver and definitely one of the main business benefits with the requirements management solution from Dassault Systems for many industries. Looking at some of the key features in the solution, I'll point out a few. It's very easy, as you'll see, to capture the customer needs from the source documents, from the way that customers or market departments will capture the customer needs. You can easily take them and get them into the solution for further management downstream. It's easy to work with the structure and the content of the requirements. The product teams can detail the input customer needs into system and subsystem more detailed requirements by requirements decomposition and derivation, meaning breaking up into more atomized parts or deriving new vital information from perhaps a hidden meaning in a more fuzzy customer requirement that you get. It's also possible to define parameters, meaning that you can take important design information with you all the time and measure your designs against well-defined parameters like cost or time or important design parameters that are accessible from within your design tools. You can extend your requirements on a project basis. So for one project, these set of attributes are important when describing a requirement, and for another project, another set can be important. I mentioned traceability, which comes from the way the information is defined in the Dassault Systems tools as objects with relationships to other objects. And also it's possible, as the three last bullets say here, as I mentioned before, to take the product definition information, requirements and features and use them later on in the actual authoring tools in CATIA and Delmia and Simulia to understand better the input to my design work. and that is pretty unique. We will not cover that in detail today, as we will stay with the Enovia functionality, but we are more than happy to come back at a later stage, if you would like that, to show you some of the capabilities in the 3DEXPERIENCE platform when taking requirements further. All right, so that's a brief introduction to some of the business drivers and the benefits with the tools. Let's continue on with the just a short overview of some of the core concepts in modern systems engineering practices. And these practices and some of the organizations I will point to here are, of course, defining the domain of requirements management today. So for those of you who are new to this and want to get more information, you will find some good links to INCOSI and some organizations later on here. A brief definition of systems engineering: it's an interdisciplinary approach, meaning, as I said before, that it will encompass many different design disciplines. And to become successful today, you really need to integrate properly. It is a must to make sure that your electronics design is compatible with your software design and works well in your hardware design for many companies in that domain. A system engineering focus is the customer need and the required functionality, and to define that early in the development cycle by documenting requirements, and then moving on with the actual design and validation, testing activities, and all the time keeping the complete problem, all the aspects of the product or the design work in mind: performance, cost and schedule, manufacturing, test, training, support, operations, and also disposal. And the aspects here on disposal, for instance, can be the materials compliance management, which is also a very important domain for many companies today, from the regulations imposed by the governments and European unions and whatnot. That is also a separate topic for Technia webinars, and if you have missed that, please also contact Jana Ahlberg to get more information and perhaps a recording of that webinar to see how Enovia can help you in defining compliant products according to a large set of regulations on the market. If you're interested in more details on systems engineering and want to get more involved, I strongly recommend you to go to incosi.org, the International Council on Systems Engineering, and become a member, take part in interesting seminars, and meet really skilled people in various domains related to systems engineering and requirements management, of course. A very common way to look at this is to use the VModel, the classic, it's an extended model, extended version of a waterfall model, really. So today, as you're probably aware, lots of development projects are using more agile methodologies. So instead of going from top down and specifications first and then a large set of development and then test, you have this integrated in iterative moves. And I mean, iteration is possible also within the V model. What's important here is that you have a breakdown, a natural breakdown on the left-hand side from customer needs into something describing or defining a solution. And here you have, in a traditional V model, you would have customer requirements being broken down into system and subsystem requirements, eventually strong enough for detailed design. And then integration, verification, and validation on various levels, on subsystem, system level, up to the actual delivery to the customer. This can also be defined like this using the Dassault Systems terminology of the RFLP, with requirements management and of course iterations within the requirements management domain, breaking that down and detailing that more, moving into describing the functions in the system and the logical architecture, meaning the more static view of the product bill of material, into the physical design with parts, building, engineering bill of materials, going up and testing on various levels to define the complete product, a virtual or a real product. And the systems engineering here will, the systems engineering domain or systems engineering practices, I should say, will then have, you can say, influence and encompass both the requirements management, the design activities, the test management activities, but also a large part of the actual project management going on the top level here. So for a cohesive view, systems engineering thinking is required. So not just focusing on the actual requirements management, but also look at how to relate the requirements management activities to the whole product definition process and the development activities. And the holistic approach to that is the systems engineering approach. I mentioned taking the requirements information further downstream into the design tools. This is what it can look like just with a few quick screenshots. You have the requirements available to navigate in your design tools. You will work with a functional definition describing the functions that your system can deliver, and then going in and designing the actual functions and the behavior by logical modeling and actual parts then that realizes these technical or logical functions in your product. All right, so that's the majority of the PowerPoint part. So now I want to go over to demonstration mode, and I will just set that up quickly. So here we have the Dassault Systems 3DEXPERIENCE platform, and it's the latest version called 2014X. I'm logging in, and I'm currently working as a requirements manager or requirements engineer. Just a few quick words on the 3DEXPERIENCE platform. When you are working within the 3DEXPERIENCE platform in any application, you now have access to what's called the compass. So here you can, by going to various quadrants, access your tools that you use for product development. In the north quadrant you have social and collaborative applications, and this is where you find the Enovia requirements management tools, for instance. Here on the western quadrant you have your 3D design tools, CATIA and SolidWorks and Geovia, and also the new brand BioVia for biosciences. South you have virtual and real with simulation, virtual manufacturing in Delmia, taking products to a real lifelike experience by using the 3D tools, and on the eastern quadrant you have your information intelligence applications with Exalead searching and search-based applications, and NetVibes for advanced mashup dashboarding. Going back to the south, if we go into the requirements domain, we have a start page. In this case, it's a list of requirement specifications. We also have shortcuts to important information, and here I can get a list of all my requirements that I'm currently working on. So this is a list with the requirements that I'm currently interested in. It's a list that has not been defined in the Enovia tool. It has been defined in a document that was sent to me by one of my customers, or perhaps one of my own product managers. So how do we get the information from, for instance, a Word document into Enovia? Here we have a Word document with a requirement specification for a new unmanned aerial vehicle platform. Someone has been creative and made design sketches of what it can look like when this nice little vehicle is out flying, with the legs extracted here so it won't hinder the view from the cameras that this thing is supposed to be able to carry as well. So this is a standard Word document, text up and down. The product manager has been clever, has been using the structuring capabilities in Word, so chapters are well defined, which makes it easy for me to process this document now when I want to include and import. So what I do have here is a little plugin from Dassault Systèmes that can be downloaded from the web application and just installed in my Microsoft Office client. It is a little plugin that works with Office 2007 and up. I'm running 2013. And here it's very easy to just select something and say, what is this? Is it a requirement? Is it a comment? Or maybe a full chapter? So one way of working can be to be inside of the structure view here, the outlining view, select the full chapter, and then say, this is a chapter. What happens is that the system will tag your document. So it will highlight with colors that you define what's what. So if we look at my settings here, we can say that I've defined my chapters to be orange, my comments to be yellow, and the requirements I've tagged are blue. And here you also set up the link to the server and your login credentials. So the system will keep track of the chapters, comments, and requirements here. Once you have imported this into Enovia, information will be brought back to the document. So you will have links into your Enovia web application. So by clicking, I can go to the imported definition of this requirement and, for instance, follow its progress and evolution moving forward. And here you see an example of the structure as imported by Enovia and given automatic names and numbers using the numbering sequencing. And if I click on a requirement here, the system will take me to that definition in the document. So if I want to understand what requirement 17 is here, I will go directly to that definition in the document. Lots of more features here. You can have automatic structure capture. If you're importing large amounts, it can automatically traverse the outline structure of the Word document and import that as a requirement specification with requirements objects in Novian. So what does that look like? Well, you will get the requirements as individual objects. Every requirement has its own revision and lifecycle state. So this requirement has been released after a detailed walkthrough of requirements engineers and product engineers, while these requirements are still in the proposed state. What this brings you is an additional benefit of being able to work in a more fragmented way. So instead of waiting for the full requirement specification to be approved, you can start working and designing or defining your product based on the requirements that are already released. Perhaps the requirements for the electronics engineering part are already released, while the requirements for the software part are still on hold for whatever reason. Then the electronics engineers can start working and not wait for the full requirement spec to be released. This is one definite factor that will allow you to get a faster time to market with your products. What happens when you import the requirement specification is that a requirement specification object is created. This is the requirement specification object. Let's just change a view here. Here you will see the chapters imported as objects as well. There were 3 chapters in my requirement specification: an overview chapter, requirements chapter, and references. So if we expand, we will see sub-chapters. One was the mission characteristics subchapter that had 4 requirements. They had a title and they have content. The system fully supports rich text importing, so images and all that can be captured from Word. Excel capturing is also available, by the way. I'm just showing the Word version here. So you can view and you can also edit by using built-in rich text editors in the web environment. It's also possible to export this back to Word should you so wish to perhaps send this for further refinement back to the customer, or if you want to share this with a potential supplier, etc. Already now we see that this information has matured a lot compared to the input requirements that were defined in the Word document. It's a classification in functional and non-functional requirements. I showed before the lifecycle status on the individual requirement that can be different. So 2 of these requirements are now in the release state. So someone has decided that these requirements are vital and valid for us and will be implemented in a product moving forward. Also, other visual indicators display important information. The little clock here indicates the priority. We have 1 high, 1 urgent, 1 low, and 1 more high requirement in this chapter. The little stamp indicates the difficulty: medium difficulty, low, and high. So this gives an indication of someone's estimate of how hard is it to include this requirement in our existing products. And then you also have indicators for showing, are these requirements allocated into subsystems, or have they been detailed or derived more into more detailed requirements. So if we look at the requirement number 9 here, weather and other conditions, the text described what the UAV should be capable of handling in terms of weather conditions, snow, wind, temperature, etc. And of course, to be able to use this as good input moving forward, the requirements should be broken down. So it's one big requirement, and we want to get a snow requirement, a wind requirement, etc., so that we can handle them properly, because the product design has to have specific properties for managing strong wind compared to heavy snow. We have a couple of questions already. I can take them right now. One question is if the presentation will be available for download, and we will share the actual recorded webinar. And if you want to get just the presentation, that can be arranged as well. So please contact Jana Ahlberg, our marketing manager, with your email and specific requests. Also another request, if we get requirements in PDF format, not the modifiable document like Word or Excel. Is there some kind of plugin for that? I'm not exactly certain. There are ways of exporting PDFs and turning them into RTF that can be open and treated as Word documents. The current functionality in the Traceable Requirements Management process is capturing in Word and Excel. So somehow the requirements need to be there because the documents are also updated, as I showed you. Another question, the things I'm showing right now, are they also working for earlier Enovia releases, 2013X? And the answer is yes. You have pretty much the same functionality in 13X. So I will not show anything today that is really specific for 14X. So in 13X it looks pretty much the same. The difference is the encapsulating of the Enovia applications, really, with the compass and stuff. Okay. Moving forward, continuing with the detailing requirements. Number 9, lots of information in this, and we want to break it down. So here we have broken this down by creating sub-requirements for snow, wind, temperature, visibility, rain, and altitude. That's one way of decomposing. When you create sub-requirements in the Enovia requirements management functionality, you do not add new information. So here I just took information from the top level requirement and put it into the sub-requirements. You can also create something called derived requirements, where you, based on the information that is perhaps a bit fussy, you will derive information into more detailed requirements that make sense for your product definition. So based on someone saying it should be possible to drive fast, you will derive what does fast mean, and then have some parameters for minimum speed that will follow in the design process. So sub-requirements and derived requirements, slightly different. Both are capable of handling here. And this is the way you work. You can go into content edition mode once you have imported your requirements and further refine the information. Of course, for released information, you cannot go in and modify, then you must make a new revision of that information. If the full requirement specification is released, a change management process is needed to open up and introduce new revisions of chapters and content in that new revision then. So the baselining concept that many people are used to working with is primarily here treated by or handled by freezing or releasing revisions of requirement specifications containing a set of released requirements as well. There are also tools available from us at Technia for adding even more advanced baselining capabilities, so you can take snapshots also of requirement sets that are in non-released states. So during prototype phases or definition phases, development phases that are early, you can take several snapshots of requirements and use for various purposes. Perhaps if you're baselining a set of requirements that goes into a prototype build of a product that someone will test, you can see what exact requirements were fulfilled or satisfied by that specific build. Looking forward more at the traceability aspects, I've talked about that several times, that you have also, not in the Traceable Requirements Management module, but in other parts of the system, you have other aspects of the product definition, like in the variant management, where you can define platform configurable products that are then configured into certain product configurations with specific capacities, where you reuse large parts of the product definition. As I said, that's one key also for coming faster to market with your products, that you can reuse larger modules. And reusing the requirements on those modules are of course key. What I'm showing you now is the variant management, where we have defined a couple of products all coming from the same set of product families, and here you have a logical architecture of a quadcopter, the beautiful thing I showed you on the slide there. It has a battery, a canopy, a frame, some landing gears, some main rotors and motors and whatnot. On the motor, you will see that this logical feature satisfies a set of the requirements I've just imported. So this is how you make sure that you take care of the requirements in your product design in an early stage. And then this logical feature, the motor, later on in my product configurations, one of these four parts, various motors, will fulfill that logical feature in the engineering structure. And of course, you can also go to serial number units delivered to customers of these motors with a serial number. So then you have this web of information. You see the serial number on the motor. You can see what design part has been used in manufacturing that. You see the logical feature that motor fulfills in your product. You see the requirements on that motor, and then you can understand the impact of changes of these requirements to your full downstream product delivery. And this is extremely powerful, and no other system than these kind of integrated product definition systems can help you achieve that. If we go back to the requirement specification, there are various tools for understanding the traceability downstream of your complete requirement set. So here in my traceability tab, I can go in and see various traceability reports. I can see how many of my requirements have been further detailed. So I just had my weather conditions more detailed, and what's the status of those. These are valid details, and this is just a suspect. A few more questions. One question, the things I'm showing, are these out-of-the-box Enovia things, or are they Technia additions? So far I've only showed the Enovia out-of-the-box capabilities. I've mentioned more advanced baselining from Technia as part of our Technia Value Components offering. I will show you the test management shortly, where we have extended the out-of-the-box Innovia offering with more advanced planning capabilities as a Technia offering. Another question was how the lifecycle states and priorities are set, etc. on the objects, and those are managed from within the Innovia web application. So, and they can of course also be mapped from the Word document. In some cases that information is present in the Word document. Most common though is that you manage them from within the Innovia Word application, because they probably have a business impact and business logic related. So not everyone can promote a requirement to the release date. There are some access restrictions based on that. Another question is if all your Technia additions, the Technia value components, are supported in the latest releases of the Innovia applications from Dassault, the 14X, and the answer is yes, absolutely. We fully support all active versions of the Dassault system tools there. All right, so continuing with more traceability aspects. Requirements to requirements, also possible to look at what I just said with requirements to downstream features. So here is a report with all my requirements in this requirement specification, what products have adopted this requirement, and what feature in that product. So this gives you an excellent view of, have all my requirements in the specification been taken care of? So here we see, for instance, one requirement related to mission frequency that is not yet allocated, committed to a specific product platform, product release, no specific feature in that product. So that requirement needs to be taken care of in one way or another. And also using these visual highlights to immediately indicate requirement status, the need for further refining. As you can see, all my features in the products are still in preliminary, so I'm very early in my product definition. Okay. Moving forward, looking a bit at the change management. I mentioned that briefly. If we look again on the list of requirements, we can also see a visual indicator for a requirement that has an active engineering change on it. So this is an indication that something will happen with my requirement number 2, revision A, in the future. So if we go in and take a closer look at that requirement, we look at the change control and the engineering change tab, we see an engineering change with the description here saying that it's almost impossible to find sensors with the same cabling. So let's scrap this requirement totally. It's a requirement for sensor modularity, that all sensors should have the same kind of connectors. So here we have an engineering change. It's a request to change the requirement set and perhaps the functional set of my product. There are several different engineering change vehicles available in the Innovia system. What I'm showing you now is the engineering change vehicle with the initial impulse for change and the actual change activity to perform the change in the product combined into one. So it has a rather long life cycle, with the early phases being the impulse and then a decision to go ahead and implement, and then you have validation and closure steps also. There are also enterprise change models with a separate change request object that can then be taken care of in a change order and then a change action that details the actions needed for specific information objects. Here you can see on this engineering change what are the impacted objects here. It's the requirement, that is requested to be obsoleted, and that will of course have an impact on my products that will no longer be required to, whatever this was, have modular connectors for the sensors. All right. The way you then progress with this change request, engineering change, is to further detail it. You can have an impact analysis, various departments estimating the impact this will have in their specific domain. So here we see one guy that comments that finding good sensors on the market will be so much easier without this requirement. It will force us to have a larger variety of internal cabling and connectors, but that's a small cost, blah, blah, blah. And then you can estimate this. What's the impact on the schedule, on the implementation effort? How much more testing do we have to do? Is there a cost penalty for this, etc.? What's the risk by this? So you can have a very structured way of various departments giving input to the change that this removal of this requirement will have on the product. A few more questions. Is it possible to export requirements already defined in other tools like Quality Center or DOORS or Requisite Pro or others? And yes, absolutely. What I showed you now is the capability of capturing requirements that comes in documents. If you have requirements in other requirements management tools, but you want to take them further and perhaps expose them to the design and authoring tools or link them into your product definition in Innovia, you can do that as well. There is a tool from Dassault Systèmes called Rectify that is a world-class tool, also embedded partly into the DOORS suite, that will allow you to link requirements, extract requirements from up to 60 different requirements management tools and include those, import those into Innovia so that you can get all the benefits I've shown you with the Innovia solution later on. So that's possible. The tool is called Rectify, and we can absolutely assist you with more information about that should you be interested. All right, that's pretty much what I intended to demonstrate. I just have a quick little slide regarding test management, which is critical here, of course. What I didn't show you was that for requirements you also define test cases and perhaps use cases for describing the way that functionality is supposed to work based on a certain requirement. The test case definition is key though, so you gather test cases around the requirements, and the test case of course is a structured instruction on how to make sure that this requirement is fulfilled in your product definition. What you then have is a process for managing the tests, and what I'm describing here is an extension by Technia made to the standard functionality. The standard functionality in Innovia contains the test case definition and also execution of test cases. So you have the test case and the test execution objects there and processes for them. What we have added is also the possibility to group various test executions or test runs into campaigns, because a very common request is that you want to be able to plan well ahead your testing activities. And what you start by doing is a test case designer or requirements engineer defines test cases for the requirements, and you have functional and non-functional tests, of course. You then go into test planning and you lay out your test campaigns. Perhaps you want to have a systems integration test campaign, and you want to have final delivery tests, and the customer then wants to use a certain amount of your test cases and use them in their acceptance tests for the product. The test planning phase allows you to lay out that structure of a campaign containing various test runs or test executions that will allow you to pass or fail or measure the output of individual test cases you run. And of course, assigning test runs to persons. Who's responsible for making sure that this test run really happens? Then you go ahead into test execution. You test, you track progress and status through various visual tools like our Technia Value component called the grid browser, which shows you in green and red the status of your tests. And you create issues when, for instance, test cases fail, or when you want to further improve the performance output of a certain test case. You can also print your test run records. If you're out in the field without online access, you can have paper-based reports that you fill in and then bring home to the office and for later updating. So that's the main sort of process in the Technia enhanced test management process. And this can look like this, that you have a set of predefined test campaigns. You will, in those test campaigns, define a set of test runs. Each test run will contain a set of test cases. These are test cases in the table rows here. And then you have a different view showing the status. How did it go? Red, green, yellow. Do I need to rerun the test perhaps? So you can keep constant track of your test management activities. All right, I finished almost in time. So open up for more questions. We have here, is the 3DEXPERIENCE platform, is that an additional module of Innovia? Does it have to be purchased separately, or does it come with a base product of Innovia? That's a good question. The 3DEXPERIENCE platform, or in the 2014X release, is really the new generation of PLM from Dassault. So if you are an existing V6 or 2013X customer, you are entitled to freely upgrade to the 14X and the 3DEXPERIENCE platform. So the things I've showed you now, the new user interface capabilities, I've just shown you a very small part of that in this session. You also have more advanced searching capabilities using the 6W tags provided by the Exalead functionality, and collaborative spaces provided by the old SWIM. Those are all there as basic parts in the 3DEXPERIENCE platform. After an upgrade, you also have to convert your licenses, but it is for a zero cost. We can assist you with that, or if you contact your Dassault system sales representatives or partner sales representatives, they have the answers and the tools to help you come further in that process. But it is the next generation, the new evolution of PLM from Dassault. Right, more questions? Please contact us with feedback on this presentation or requests for more information. You'll find us on LinkedIn, Technia, the web on technia.com, Twitter @Technia. We are here to serve you, and your wish is our command. I said that in the last webinar as well, and we have gotten lots of good input on topics for future webinars, so please keep them coming. Please email our marketing manager, Jana Ahlberg, with your ideas, and this webinar recording will also be available for if you want to share this with colleagues, etc. And you will find it on our site, or Jana will send out more information on how to get this. Thank you very much. This concludes the webinar, and hope to see you again. Don't miss our webinar for the new release of the Technia Value Components, the release 2014.1 tomorrow. More information can be found on our website. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.